Hello and welcome to another Literacy Ready Training Refresher. This training refresher focuses on English Unit 2, Lesson 6, and particularly on the ways that teachers can provide feedback to aid students' revision of the literary argument essay, which is the culminating project for this unit. In Lesson 6, we recommend that teachers provide feedback in a couple of different ways. One is through peer feedback and the other is teacher feedback. For peer feedback, we've allowed for students to do some peer editing sessions and provided a checklist that they can use for that peer editing session. But perhaps the more useful feedback will come from teachers, and the teacher feedback that we recommend would consist of written comments on a draft, one-on-one conferring, and mini lessons. In terms of the written comments that you provide on students' drafts of their literary argument essay, we recommend that you do minimal editing and correcting on students' drafts. Instead, you might want to make holistic suggestions for structure and sequencing, and also note for students the kinds of problems that they seem to be experiencing. For example, if a student is having serious difficulty with subject-verb agreement, you might write a note on that draft that says, "Please see me for some work on subject-verb agreement." In terms of structure and sequencing, looking at the draft and providing written comments is a great place for you to suggest for students ways they might restructure paragraphs or resequence paragraphs to make the essay flow better and to help it to be more convincing. Depending on the size of your class, of course, we also recommend that you do some one-on-one conferring, particularly with students who are experiencing unique problems or for students who are experiencing overwhelming problems with their writing. For either of these, you want to focus the conference on specific issues and provide modeling for students of how to solve their specific issues. The unique problem situation would be the situation in which you have one or two students who are having struggles with a particular writing problem that no one else in your class is experiencing. For that, it would be a waste of time to do a mini lesson since most students in the class are not struggling with that problem. Instead, the teacher should sit down with that student or those students and really work with them on those unique problems. For students who are experiencing overwhelming problems with writing, a conference can really help to focus them in on the kinds of writing issues that are solvable within the space of this unit. So it might be that a student is just really struggling with every aspect of writing. In that case, you know that you're not going to be able to help them solve all of their writing problems. So the trick would be to pull out one or two writing problems that are resolvable, teach that student those specific problems, and then help them work through a couple of sentences in their own writing to apply their new knowledge to that writing. So in both of those cases, this has to be done knowing that you have a class that's both able to work without your direct supervision and a class that's small enough to manage that. Perhaps the best way to provide feedback for a whole class is in the form of mini lessons. These are short, focused lessons on issues that students are having in common. For example, if many students in your class are struggling with embedding quotations from text into sentences and getting the punctuation right and making the sentence flow, you might provide a short mini lesson to support them in that particular area. Mini lessons should take maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and then you can follow up with practice and application to their drafts. So the key thing with revision is for students to apply the feedback they've received for both revision and editing to their own writing. So one thing that's important to do with that is to ask students to review the feedback they've received and then apply it to their own writing. Again, that feedback may have come in the form of peer feedback, it may have come in the form of teacher feedback, but really asking them to dig deep, apply what they've learned to their own writing, that's an important step. It's one that students often will resist, and so I think it's important to really be directive about that and let them know they need to apply it. It's important too to clarify the difference between revision and editing and to make sure that students are doing both. So if we think of revision as being more structural and sentence-based, paragraph-based, rethinking parts of their essay, that's revision, and then editing more of the surface level issues. Do they have their spelling correct? Is their grammar using standard English? Are they paragraphing well? That kind of thing. Both revision and editing are necessary, and students perhaps tend to do more of the editing and less of the revision, but helping them understand that both are necessary is important. One way to do that is to provide teacher modeling of both revision and editing. So I've in the past have written the essay that I'm asking my students to write along with them, and then to model some revision and editing for them, perhaps using a document camera or something like that so they can see what I'm doing. You might also model how to provide verbal feedback on a draft, particularly if your students tend to really focus more on surface level issues when they're providing peer feedback. And if you want to push them into doing a little bit more thoughtful feedback, it's important then that you model how to provide verbal feedback on a draft. Having students work with a partner to do a peer edit and then provide suggestions for both editing and revision. That's an important step and is one that's included in the lesson plans. And then finally, students revise and edit and turn in their final drafts. So that's what I have for you today on revision and feedback. Thanks again for the work that you're doing, and have a great day.